Keckler, what kind of artist are you?
I'm a mixed media artist. A lot of my history in learning art, I taught myself. I wanted to try everything, watercolor, oil pastels, and how to draw and paint everything. And then I just started to love how everything can mix together and bring out an interesting kind of puzzle.
Yes, so we're going to talk about your puzzles. When did you first pick up your first, I guess, paintbrush? When did this history begin in your life?
My mother really wanted all of us, there were 5 children in our family, she wanted all of us to, have exposure to arts. And so I went to Kalamazoo College. A professor there encouraged me to keep painting. And then with my children, I tried to encourage that. And so my daughter, Milena Cadiz, she's a beautiful singer. She has her own music. She writes her music. And then my son, Michael Cadiz, is a musician, classical guitarist, and he builds classical guitars. So I knew I had to really hand that down because it's an important part of me, that life, it means so much more to me because of the arts. But I just felt like I had to keep pushing myself over the years because I think some artists are just innately born artistic in the arts, and I felt like I really had to work for mine.
All right, so let's talk about your art and your puzzles. You mentioned the mixed medium. Mm-hmm. What's your niche?
I think there's 2 different ways I paint. There's one where it's just very loose and expressive, and then there's also a very more controlled painting that has lots of layers and lots of color. So I like to start out with a simple sketch, and then I like to put in some washes, sometimes watercolor washes, sometimes acrylic washes, and then I do glazes on top of that, and then I may add tissue paper to certain areas, and then I paint over that. So I like a lot of texture. I like to have the color shine through, like through a cloud in the sky. When the sun shines through, gives a glow. And I love going deep with the layers and really almost like nurturing the painting into existence.
You got that new haircut, you look like Princess Di. I'll meet you at the mall, the Chinese restaurant side. You said you're making changes, you wave your hands, a watercolor wave, we disappear like sand.
So first of all, I sketch it on here, and then I do a thin coat of paint to get some idea of the colors that I want. Once everything's dried and I have kind of all my layers in there, I do some glazes and I choose different colors. So I put this matte medium glaze in, which really thins out paint. And then I put a touch of the color that I want to glaze with. This is Indian yellow hue. And I learned about this glazing technique from an artist in Seattle who I really like. His name is Don Tiller. This is one technique I learned from him. So then when everything's dry, double check it, and I coat over it. And it completely changes the color of the painting, which is a little disturbing at first because I kind of fell in love with those colors. So that's something I've learned long ago, that I get attached to the painting at certain steps, and I don't want to do the next step, but I have to stay true to the hopes of the finished product. So when I first started this painting, what I wanted to create was something just very peaceful, koi going down, just kind of a little babbling brook. And so the koi fish are kind of like little dancers to me. They have their tails are like flowing dresses. People love the koi fish. I think it's because there's so many stories about koi fish. And some people believe that koi fish are reincarnated Japanese warriors. There's lots of stories, but that's one I kind of like because they're supposed to be reincarnated Japanese warriors, but they're peaceful. I have traditionally been a super large painter. I've painted murals, and a lot of my prints are from, 5 foot by 3 foot paintings or 5 by 5 paintings. So this is actually small for me, but I have been doing smaller lately because it's hard to store and cart around large paintings. So I was just about to mix another color here to put in some more of the waves. So I'm using kind of a palette of colors here that has a blue and a Naples yellow. And once it's glazed, this will have more of a green color to it. So this may even just look a little gray right now on there. So that's the advantage of glazing. When you glaze over colors, it gives you colors you didn't originally have. Sometimes I have the palette all worked out for myself, or sometimes I, do the drawing first, and then I look at the painting and ask the painting, what colors do you want to be? That seems kind of silly, but it actually, once you have an idea first, then you sketch it, and it starts to be a relationship that you have a conversation with. For me, anyway. I don't know, I can't speak for others, but it starts to be, it's an internal idea, and then you externalize it, and then it speaks. It helps.
As we look at your pictures, I'm going to start basically with this shot, which has a story behind it. Tell us a little bit about this.
This was a very quick painting, and actually I had prepared this canvas as a 5 by 3 foot canvas, and I prepared it I was going to do kind of a people scene, and it had a lot of purples and pinks, and then that day I happened to be driving in Seattle, and there was a young man. I just saw him for a second out of the corner of my eye, and he was slumped over in his wheelchair, and it just struck me as so painful. So when I came home, I covered that canvas up with black and just did a very quick rendering of him. And then later that painting was purchased by a man who's part of Fair Start in Seattle, which helps homeless in Seattle.
Tell me about this.
This was a painting called The Face, and this is just a print of it. Okay. It's because it's 6.5 feet tall. It was featured in Architectural Digest. It was a big piece, and it took me a long time to do it and to feel satisfied with it. But it does have a lot of feeling in it for me. It's not exactly a self-portrait, but there's definitely some of my journey there in that face.
What's the significance of these, shall we say, lamps?
Yes, I call them serenity lamps. And because people loved the koi, I wanted to print them on rice paper and somehow make lights with them. So I started a little side business with the lamps. And then there's the one lamp that I'm really pleased with. Jamie Lee Curtis started a company called My Hand in Yours. And the great thing about it is it's all 100% gets contributed to the Children's Hospital in LA. So not only did she want to help children in the hospital, but she wanted to help artists. So she has artists and craftsmen who make the products that she sells.
And she liked your product.
She did. That was really, really, really exciting.
What is it about this culture of Kalamazoo that has A, brought you back here, or B, that allows you to do what you do so well?
Well, I think there's a high interest in art in Kalamazoo, and I always felt that. I still feel that. It really pays attention to a lot of needs of our overall culture. It just has a lot of little pockets of really incredible things that Kalamazoo does, and I just admire that.
All the hours that got away from me.
Be sure to find us on YouTube and Instagram. Exclusive videos, extended content, and behind-the-scenes pictures. Just search Kalamazoo Lively Arts.